most important thing is that you must solve critical problems for society. And for Singapore, we have many challenges as a small city-state without a natural hinterland. So if the deep tech can help solve many of the problems in Singapore, then certainly it will be able for us to offer this to the rest of the world as solutions to improve the quality of life for many people elsewhere in the world. First thing is that you must have people who want to solve these problems and want to make a difference. Once you have the people with the correct attitude, then you need people and teams of people with the correct competencies to come together to resolve those issues, not just from a technological perspective, but also from the non-technological perspective. Now, having done the second step, then the third step is an enabling environment whereby from finance to IP to business model, all these will be important to help us put together the ecosystem to support the translation of the deep tech ideas from ideas to applications.
I think it's very difficult to say that there are SDGs that are more pressing because they all represent fundamental challenges to humanity. But there are some goals, for example, around the eradication of extreme poverty. There's still around 650 million people who live in extreme poverty. There's also around 800 million people living in hunger. So there's some very urgent basic needs. But all of these sustainable development goals actually advance the same cause around humanity. So if you start to look at health issues or you start to look at environmental issues, you're actually going to make an impact on the number of people living in poverty or living in hunger. So the Deep Tech Summit has been really interesting for me. It is very interesting to see what's happening in the Singapore ecosystem of innovation. For us, what we want to do is find the best ideas, the best technologies, the best business models out there that are being developed now, that are life-changing technologies that can be brought to people globally, those who are furthest behind. And so the Deep Tech Summit kind of showcases a number of those emerging technology trends that we hope to be able to adapt and bring for the benefit of humanity more broadly.
They make us happy. They give us energy. They help us to grow as people, as a business, as a country. They feed many mouths, nearby and far away. They inspire. They provide color and fragrance. They connect and they bring together. Our strength is to innovate, to make sustainable, to work together, to look beyond borders, to invest in solutions for now and the future. We co-create together with companies, knowledge institutions and governments. We have the knowledge to enable growth, the technology to make progress, the drive to offer opportunities. We have the willpower to improve, here in the Netherlands and worldwide. We are convinced that we can do more with less, that we can achieve more together with fewer natural resources. Innovating for here and for the world calls for sustainable solutions and smart technologies, with consideration for our environment, with a passion for people, for our growth and our planet, and for the significance we have with all of our expertise, our training opportunities, our innovations and our international connections, now and in the future. We are top sector horticulture and starting materials. Every day, we are committed to green habitats, health, trade, economy, employment, energy, and of course, flowers. Top sector horticulture and starting materials, together towards a sustainable future.
Imagine a world filled with endless possibilities. A world powered by deep technology, enabling a future where we no longer fear cancer. A future where we can ensure sustainable energy consumption and less pollution, and use supercomputers to advance the human condition. A discovery of the DNA structure made in 1953 has made an impact beyond genomics and allowed us to venture deeper into more treatment discovery for all mankind to achieve a future free of avoidable cancer deaths.
Here at Lucence, we work to achieve less suffering and less pain for our cancer patients and their families. This is done through the use of innovative technology for accurate profiling of cancers and more suitable treatments. Amplimark is an advanced next-generation sequencing technology. It is used for the ultra-sensitive detection of cancer signal from a simple blood test. It means the sparing of invasive procedures. We have assembled a crack team of star scientists from 12 countries all around the world right here to make the vision real of a world with no avoidable cancer deaths through the use of non-invasive, innovative blood testing technology.
Innovation has always been the bedrock of human progress. Chemical separation is imperative for industries ranging from food, pharmaceutical, and petrochemical. But the current processes are so energy intensive, they account for up to 15% of global energy consumption. Innovatory technology is necessary to ensure long-term sustainability of these processes while reducing environmental stress.
CPU is providing a sustainable solution to industrial chemical separation. Our new generation of nanofilters will dramatically reduce the energy consumption and pollution globally by enabling the most effective chemical separations at the molecular level without the traditional use of heat. Regular chemical separation processes are not just huge silent polluters, they're also very expensive. That's why CPU's nanofiltration technology is an alternative to reducing the chemical separation's energy consumption by 90%, making it 50% more affordable.
Since the 1960s, digital networking has allowed data to flow between mainframes, terminals, and then computers. The science behind this transfer of data helped develop the internet, cloud computing, IoT, and enabled a digital economy. Quantum devices are not digital, but if we can get these devices to communicate through quantum entanglement, the possibilities they enable may go beyond anything conceivable today.
So Spectral is enabling global quantum communications through satellites transmitting entangled photons, particles of light. This allows quantum devices and future quantum computers to communicate in their native medium. So this enables highly secured communications and eventually a quantum internet and maybe a quantum economy. It may seem implausible today, but so was the digital economy back in the 1960s.
The only thing certain about the future is that it's uncertain. The human race will always reach farther, aim higher, and strive for greater heights. The key to our success lies in the power of deep technology, and the future is up to us now to secure. At SGInnovate, we're making sure that happens, one innovation at a time.
Hi everyone, hello from Singapore. Thank you for taking the time to join us for today's event. My name is Jody from SGInnovate, and we are very happy to bring the next installment of our Future of Food series together with the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Singapore, as well as the Netherlands Innovation Network. For those of you who may be more new to us at SGInnovate, we are a government-owned organization in Singapore with the mission to build deep tech innovations from Singapore for the world. We invest in and help build deep tech startups in the fields of artificial intelligence, medtech, quantum tech, and autonomous vehicles, to name a few. We also work together with entrepreneurial scientists and clinicians to help bring their innovative research from lab to market and develop tech talent and engage with a vibrant deep tech ecosystem. Part of our initiatives to strengthen the deep tech ecosystem and generate conversation and knowledge sharing is through community events such as the one we have today. Today's webinar will involve an exciting panel made up of innovative technology providers, users, and producers of recycled nutrients, who will talk more about future of food and nutrient recycling and ways in which we can help to close the loop and move towards a circular economy. During the webinar, please also feel free to submit your questions into our Q&A section on the bottom bar of the window. Without further ado, I'll now like to pass the time over to our event partner, Barbara, from the Embassy for a few words. Barbara, please.
Thank you, Jody. Hi, everyone. My name is Barbara Wiewel, and I work at the Innovation Department at the Netherlands Embassy. We stimulate bilateral cooperation between Singapore and Dutch companies, research institutes, and government. We focus on global challenges, for example, in the field of circular economy, smart mobility, climate adaptation, as well as on key enabling technologies such as AI, 5G, and cybersecurity. So this is actually our 5th event in this series. We've had some very interesting discussions on digital trends in agriculture, urban farming, food waste, and on alternative proteins. And next month will be our last event for now. That will be on 3D food printing. So I'm actually quite curious to see how many of you have attended webinars in this series before. So maybe you can indicate that in the chat if this is your first event or if there were other ones that you have attended previously. So back to today's topic, nutrient recycling. It's a very interesting topic in light of Singapore's 30 by 30 strategy to produce more food locally and in light of the Dutch circular economy goals for 2050. We will need to make better use of the available resources that we have. And it's also a complex topic as it involves bringing many people together, regulators, researchers, users, and producers of recycled nutrients. So one of the ways to do this is via a digital platform, and you will hear more about this today. So I think today's session will be very interesting, and I hope you'll enjoy the discussion. For now, I would like to thank our speakers, Adrian, Shiva, Aryan, and Renske. And please do contact us for any questions that you may have related to research and innovation. And I will now hand over to our wonderful moderator of today, Mr. Adam Lai. Adam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Jody, for giving me this opportunity to chat with such interesting people. And I hope we can have a conversation today. It is indeed a very relevant and interesting topic. For me in particular, I'm Adam Lyle. I'm a co-founder of a company here in Singapore called Padang & Co. We describe ourselves as an innovation catalyst. So Shiva and I have got a lot of things in common. And our focus areas food and agri, smart cities, and digital health. We call those our verticals, and we have 2 horizontals, sustainability and data and AI. So you can see how everything I do makes me very interested in the topic today. And of course, as we heard, Singapore's 30-30 strategy is something that's exciting a lot of people and focusing attention on food. And so much so actually this week, there are 2 other 3-day conferences talking about the future of food and future technology around food. So it's a topic that Singapore takes to its heart, but very much we realize that while we're going to have to produce more food, we do need to produce it more efficiently, using less and less energy, less resources. And so the whole concept of nutrient recycling, not only in terms of how do we produce better nutrition for people, but how do we manage the nutrients. So today we are lucky to sort of have people, we've got a platform approach, we've got a technology provider, operators, and then we've got venture builders to take advantage of bringing this all together. So how we'll structure the time we have is I'm going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves and also sort of answer a particular question, and then we'll go into more general questioning. So with that, Renske Verhulst is the Executive Director of the Nutrient platform in the Netherlands. So I'm going to let her introduce herself, but I thought what would be great to set the tone if Renske, you could perhaps introduce and explain the concept of nutrient recycling, because I don't think everybody will understand how it works. And so a few words about the nutrient platform, please.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, so I'm Renske. I'm in the board of the Nutrient Platform. I have a background more in chemistry and industrial ecology, so more focused on sustainability in general. And actually through that, I came to the Nutrient Platform and also partly work for the Netherlands Water Partnership. So the Nutrient Platform is an organization that collaborates. Excuse me, one more moment.
These things happen, don't worry.
Yes. A lovely garden guy coming into the plant, so I asked him to come water the plants a bit later. So the Nutrient Platform, it is an organization founded in 2010, 2011 by a group of people that said like, okay, in the Netherlands we have too much phosphorus in the water. We want to improve our water quality, but phosphorus is also very like an important resource. So maybe we can recover it and bring it to places where there's a shortage of it. So it was founded in 2010 and now it's a platform around 30 organizations, and it includes knowledge institutes, companies, 2 ministries, and well, the companies can be technology providers, Dutch water authorities from the fertilizer industry. So really broad food processing industry, all working together to discuss how can we support this nutrient recycling, how can we make it into practice. We're focused in the Netherlands, but we also have a European platform which we collaborate with when you talk about legislation on European level. I can talk hours on this, but I think I should keep it short. So maybe
the headline on nutrient recycling, 101 nutrient recycling.
Say that again.
The simple explanation of nutrient recycling.
Yeah. So trying to get phosphorus and nitrogen from wastewater and make it a fertilizer again and bring it back to agriculture, or reuse specific side streams from fruit production back into the soil. Mostly the focus on getting these nutrients back into the loop and not losing them through wastewater or burning streams and losing the phosphorus in it.
Okay, great. Okay, I'll now go to you, Arjen. Arjen van Nieuwenhuizen is the CTO of the Renewable Energy, Water and Resources at Vinderveen and Bos in the Netherlands. Arjen has got a close association and is often a visitor to Singapore, although pre-COVID, I guess, but hoping we might see you soon. Arjen has been involved with some interesting initiatives here in Singapore, the Research Singapore Consortium, project director at the Jurong Island Circularity Scan, and he's also the initiator of the water and resource refinery concept. And maybe when you introduce yourself, Arjen, you could give us a sense about that water and resource refinery concept. I think that would be really interesting for the folks to hear about.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, maybe also introduce Research Singapore shortly. As working for Vinderveen and Bos, I represent as a coordinator a cooperation between Singapore and the Netherlands on resource recovery in the context of circular economy. And we are doing that with 14 companies, research institutes and governmental organizations from Singapore and the Netherlands to look for the opportunities to exchange knowledge and develop common practice on what we call circular economy solutions for the future. And they are basically based on closing the loop ideas. So the programs from Singapore, from Zero Waste Nations, Sustainable Singapore, and the Food 3030 program, they are incorporated also in the concept of circular economy in the Netherlands in a certain way. And with these 14 partners, we are developing research and development, but also implementation of technologies in the Netherlands, but also in Singapore. And we have a good connection already also to working with this embassy here in Singapore, doing that for the last 2 years. And we will finalize this program hopefully next year at the Singapore International Water Week 2021. We hope to do that this summer already, but unfortunately due to COVID, it was not possible. Shortly on the resource and water refinery, this is a concept we developed with 4 of the partners within the research and some others, water boards also in the Netherlands, based on the concept that Renske just announced. We are not treating used water anymore and breaking down components and producing greenhouse gases. No, we are extracting these resources from the water, which we are not calling pollutants anymore, and concentrating them to be fit for further up processing for fertilizer industries, for example, or directly into food systems. And at the same time, we produce very, very clean water that can be used for irrigation, for example. So if you want to know more about that concept, we are proposing also cooperations in Singapore at the Eureka Global Stars initiatives, for example. So the concept will also be looked into this cooperation, and would be happy to connect also to Semcorp about this. So Adrian, maybe we should look into the opportunities there.
Okay, well, that'll be a good segue in a second for Adrian, but I'm just going to go to you, Shiva Susala, who's the founder and director of Re-Energy Ventures, a venture builder here in Singapore. And I guess, Shiva, after you introduce yourself, maybe we've got a number of terms sort of building up here: circular economy, nutrient recycling. Maybe give us your sense of how they sort of meld together just to sort of help push the conversation along. Over to you, Shiva.
Thank you so much, Adam. Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be here, and I'm honored to be part of this panel. Thank you so much for inviting me. Like Adam said, I run Renergy. You can see the side, the name here. Renergy is a venture studio based out of Singapore. We build next generation startups that collectively make our food systems more circular. So we're a circular economy venture studio for food. That's what we do. We have right now 4 startups, one focused on insect protein to replace some linearities in the animal protein industry, and also address food consumption linearities in cities. So it brings and connects those 2 linear situations into sort of a circularity there. We have a plant platform where we are, it's called Urban Tiller. We are farm to table with minimal zero waste food losses along the supply chain. We have a fungus platform where we're looking at alternative nutrients for food, for preparing for the future where conventional nutrients may be in short supply, may not even be accessible or affordable. So we're trying to work on alternative nutrients. So that's, and we also have a tech company that helps our startups, but also others in the circular economy space. We have a great pipeline of ideas. We're looking at aqua, algae, a lot of other different production possibilities to bring in alternative nutrients. But broadly, just to sort of set the framework within which we operate, Adam, there are 2 main areas. One, how do we define a circular food system? So for us on the production side, it's either taking an existing production method and making it super duper efficient with minimal losses, or bringing in alternative nutrients that could replace, offset, substitute existing nutrients. How can we move this food then to customers with minimal waste, if possible zero waste, and completely biodegradable packaging that doesn't upset the nutrient balance in the environment, right? Post-consumption, how can we then recover nutrients and cycle them back to the production? So this is broadly our focus area. Anything that fits into this framework, we are very interested for us as part of our agenda. I guess where the venture studio tries to find our niche is this. A circular economy approach is essentially a system optimization approach, right? The problem with a system optimization approach is who pays for it, right? So at the venture studio, we try and find paying customers for fantastic ideas that push the circular economy agenda, but don't have a business model. So that's, I guess, our sweet spot.
Okay, I think that's a great spot to move on to Adrian Yeo from Sembcorp Industries. Adrian's the VP for Innovation of Water at Sembcorp that operates the largest new water plant here in Singapore. So Adrian, when you introduce yourself, if you wouldn't mind actually taking the folks, because we've have a lot of people from outside Singapore on the call today who are perhaps not familiar with New Water. So if you could update us on how New Water operates and perhaps any recent updates on New Water. Over to you, Adrian.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, so my name's Adrian. I'm currently in Sembcorp. And well, thank you for having me today. So Singapore, as most of you should know, we are kind of a small country, and we have four national taps that we get our water from. One is from the reservoirs, rain. The second one is desalination, which we have, and we are continuing to build up. And the third tap is the water that we get from Malaysia. So Malaysia being much larger, they have water resources that we sign long-term contracts to purchase water from. And the fifth tap is New Water. So what New Water is basically we take the water that has been treated in our wastewater plants, in our municipal wastewater plants, and we recycle that water back into a drinking water quality. So we run it through some things, we run it through UV system. The water quality that comes out from New Water is actually better than the water that is coming out from taps because it has been treated to quite a high level. So currently there are 5 New Water plants in Singapore. Sembcorp operates currently the largest one, but I think they're building an even bigger one down the road. These New Water plants actually supply 40% of Singapore's current water needs, and by 2060 it will be 55%. So the way Singapore looks at New Water is really that it is something that is in a sense, a renewable resource, because we take what we have used and we kind of reuse it so that we have a stable water supply. So recently, about 3-4 years ago, there was a prolonged period where there was no rain, and that was when the New Water facility started to crank up, and our friend Malaysia and Johor had to have some water restrictions because the reservoirs were going empty and the rivers were really running down. But in Singapore, we didn't experience such restrictions. And I think it's, and a lot of it is because of New Water, which is why there is a semi-renewable aspect to what we have. So my own role in Sembcorp is that I look at water innovation. And I think previously Sembcorp looked at technology companies more like vendors. So you would say that I have a widget and this widget does this, and we realized that a lot of times the inventors would have the science figured out very well. But the main problem has always been the engineering, right? So making it work in the lab with one is okay, but making it work in my plant that might be 100 times bigger is different. So the way we approach it now is that we select some things that we think have potential, and Sembcorp brings in its own engineering resources to help them grow. So we've done this for a couple of water companies. These are more water treatment companies, but we do welcome collaborations with companies that might have more nutrient recovery kind of technologies. We are always open to listen and find a way to collaborate.
Okay. We heard from our Ayan and Renska talking about phosphorus recovery. I understand that actually phosphate recovery here in Singapore is actually quite expensive. Are we doing something different here that it's more expensive than maybe it might be in the Netherlands? And maybe Ayan or Renska, you might be able to jump in on that question as well. But is your experience here that it's still quite expensive, Adrian? Does that come back to a business case, or what perhaps is the issue here?
I think there's a lot of tools. I would say that Sembcorp is in the water treatment business. Yeah. And if we did manage to extract all this phosphate, obviously it must make commercial sense. Obviously also in Singapore, there isn't really a huge demand for fertilizer. I mean, we don't really have farms. So then we would actually have to then develop kind of an off-taking system. We will need to find someone who's willing to buy this kind of phosphate, and we have no understanding of this business at all. It's not something that we do. So I think partly it's the cost. The second is what are we going to do with what we produce? So it's not clear to us, so that's why we haven't really done it in a big way.
Okay. Ian, have you got some comment on that, on some of the work that you've been doing here, driving some of potential collaborations and opportunities there?
Yeah, I would like to say something about the cost or the business case of phosphate recovery, but I think Renske, you could maybe answer the first question. I saw your hand coming up, so Renske, first for you, please.
I also wanted to react on a kind of the business case thing. So maybe I'll just give an overview, and then you can answer it from the company perspective. So from in the Netherlands, it also grew from a kind of from the demand side. So it was the water authorities that wanted to become more circular, and they had some problems with scaling in the pipes, and they found out it was actually fertilizer, Sturvite. So they decided to, well, they could take it out, but it would be even more circular if they could also take it out and then do something with it. Right. So it was a kind of like a supply driven, and the business case is not only based on the product, it's also because they save maintenance costs. So building only the business case for this, for example, Sturvite recovery, you cannot only do that on the price of phosphorus itself. And Sturvite is a small market, so people are looking into what kind of other types of phosphorus can they recover that is maybe more demand driven. So I think, Arjen, maybe you could add to that or give your perspective on this.
Yeah, actually that is the case. It is especially an operational benefit you create by not having clogging of pipes or installations that have scaling problems. And also in the Netherlands, still it is not a really cost-effective way of only doing it for food production, for example. At the same time, not only the costs, but also the legislation and the application is also a topic of interest, maybe of concern. I don't know how to put that, but we have to develop further on that as well, and also in Singapore. So it is not only a cost-driven or a cost idea, it's also a legislative and acceptance issue as well.
So is that the classic sort of carrot and stick that the regulations require you to do it? So there's a stick that you have to do it, but then there are still opportunities if you can find other outputs or other ways to extract other value, for instance, other nutrients in the same stream.
Yeah, for phosphate is being recovered as magnesium ammonia phosphate. So you also recover a part of the ammonia from the used water. And actually, with phosphate, it is quite interesting that I think 25 years ago, the European phosphate industry came up to the universities to look for these opportunities to extract the phosphate from the used water. And it was not even the water boards at that time that had interest in it. So it was actually the fertilizer industry that came up to the research institutes to look for these opportunities, since they saw their mining activities getting more difficult and they see their stocks getting down. So they are looking also, so it started from a demand-driven idea, and then it was more encouraged by the water boards due to the operational issues as well. And so there is actually a business case, maybe not today, but maybe in 10 years, and at least at the longer run in time.
So it's a long game, but the demand side, and I think that's really important, but what we always think was the reason for doing something, that the actual sort of demand came from somewhere else. Perhaps to you, Shiva, because you're focusing very much on kind of human-centered design type activities. Do you sort of see parallels in some of the solutions that you're trying to get off the ground, that what the original business case you thought might have been there, that it often isn't there? Or do you feel there are too many solutions looking for problems that don't exist?
So that's always the case, especially in the sustainability space. A lot of ideas that don't have a business opportunity, to put it mildly. Now, I'll talk about insect protein. Right now, we farm an insect called the black soldier fly.
Mm-hmm.
We've realized in some jurisdictions, even though our interest is in the protein, we actually probably end up making more money from waste management, because insect farming is a great way of managing organic waste in urban spaces. So wherever the tipping fees are high, we actually end up with a business model where waste processing fees become higher inadvertently than the money we could make from the protein itself, right? So that's exactly what you alluded to. So yes, happens all the time for us, especially in the energy, food space, anything where there's processing. There are many byproducts, and there are some jurisdictions where there's acute shortage of some of those byproducts. And so we didn't realize, for example, in Indonesia, compost was really valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up making a lot of money from compost and tipping fees, for example, for some of the use cases that we are looking at. So yes, happens all the time, sir.
Yeah. Just on the, we're talking about waste. It's kind of an emotive label, talking about particular streams as waste, and talking about resale of when you perhaps extract something. Do we see, this question really directed at everybody. Are we seeing changes in what's being classified as waste, or is that a continuing problem in the industry that is kind of an obstacle to putting new collaborations through, because there's a view on a particular stream as being perhaps there's safety issues because it's still perceived as waste, whereas you in the industry may see it as perfectly safe? Is that a impediment? Adrian, is that something you see, or Arjen?
Yeah, well, I think something interesting that is happening in China, for example, where we have a few plants, is that they're beginning to tighten the regulations. So because all our plants are biological in nature, so you do need, they call it the CMP ratio, carbon to nitrogen to phosphorus, that allows the biological process.
Oops.
So to tighten the nitrogen and phosphorus levels. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, they're beginning to tighten the nitrogen and phosphorus levels to a point where the ratio doesn't work anymore. Right, so I don't have enough carbon to remove the nitrogen and the phosphorus. And there are various ways around that. Obviously, you could go to advanced removal techniques. You could go to adding carbon sources, trying to find some other carbon source in order to remove the nitrogen and phosphorus. So actually, when you start to talk about opportunities, then perhaps that's where the opportunity lies, right? Because now everybody is cracking their heads, how do I remove this extra nitrogen and phosphorus? And if you can find a way to extract it and sell it for money, even if it's cost neutral, then yeah, why not? It's something that even Sembcorp would be happy to try.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually, especially in Europe, there is a lot of effort going on to change waste status to resource status.
Right.
So for phosphorus, it is being done. Cellulose, there's a lot of discussion about that. Extraction of cellulose from wastewater to be used. So also the Ministry of Environment and Infrastructure in the Netherlands, they are having these developments at this moment to change that waste status on phosphate, on cellulose, and other resources. So to also encourage the circular idea about it.
Yeah. Do you think we're moving too slowly?
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
You had your hand up before, Rinska. Was there something you wanted to add on the question?
Yeah, what I noticed in the Netherlands is that people are starting to also think about how they formulate their waste streams. Sometimes say it's not a waste stream, it's a side stream, it's a byproduct. So it's also in the words that you use, the attitude towards it. So you see that companies are like, yeah, but this is not a waste, you know. Actually, I want to reuse this, but maybe there's some legislation that hinders it, or so you see that this thing of trying to your streams, yeah, to redevelop them and to reuse them it's becoming bigger and bigger. More research is done on it, but things are going slow, yes. But what we now see, I think there's also a lot of intention on if you start reusing streams, like how safe is it? Questions that you maybe before you didn't ask, but now you start asking. And because also our knowledge level is developing, we also see more and more risks. But on the other, and it's good, but it also slows down the process. Trying to eliminate all the risks can hinder maybe start practicing on small scale to see what actually are also the positive things.
Yeah. I mean,
So you need
Adrian, with new water, I'm sure you've experienced, you know, in the early days, people saying, where did this come from? Is it safe? And we all know that it's incredibly pure and incredibly good. How do we get over some of these perceptions? What are the ways to do it so that we do embrace more streams and get ahead of the curve and manage things more effectively, do you think?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer. I think that's all the perception problem. I can just sort of mention how Singapore did it. The perception problem that new water is a waste stream that we kind of now drink.
Yeah.
And it was all of government push where we had ministers, including our prime minister and all that, standing in the road and drinking the water. They gave out water for free to a lot of events. So during National Day celebrations, during school events, if you just call up the New Water Factory, they will actually send you a crate of new water to drink. Yeah. And we also got, obviously from the scientific point of view, we assembled sort of the best advisory panel we could. And sort of everybody agreed, yes, this is like better, or at least it's safe to drink and all that. So it became a very all of government push. And it's even for Singapore, it was a lot of effort. And up to probably 4 or 5 years down, I think then Singapore managed to get over this, you know, okay, I think it's safe to drink. And now everybody just accepts it is what it is, not much of a problem. So how to do this for neutral and recycling is, I guess you have to do kind of the same all of government push if you really wanted to do that.
Yeah. Have others had experience, Ajay?
I think the Netherlands can learn a lot from Singapore about that. Since like changing the name, for example, from wastewater to used water is one of the most important things, then calling it new water, and you see now new sand coming up and new fuel, which is really a good thing to brand these resources. And in the Netherlands, we are a little bit slow on that, I have to say, and we have to speed up a lot. And one of the examples is Singapore. So I encourage everybody from the Netherlands, especially from the ministries, to look at these concepts, how Singapore did it with the new water, and try to do that also for the products for the circular economy in the Netherlands. Right. Since we have a plan that the Netherlands wants to be completely circular economy based in 2050. If you want to do that, you have to act now. You cannot only stay to develop strategies and make plans. You have to act now.
Okay, and Shiva, I think that you looked as though you wanted to weigh in on that question in terms of making the economy circular. You've got to provide kind of the incentives, get people involved. So, you know, how do you go about driving greater engagement, greater participation?
I agree that government has a big role to play. but just want to actually place a challenge that we face from an innovation perspective. Now, what we've realized, I mean, travel extensively outside of Singapore, I won't name any country, but in the region, broadly, we've noticed that policies are still evolving on waste management. And by and large, policymakers, governments, regulators are supportive as long as it's going to lead to new economic activity and so on. The big challenge we have faced as an organization, I don't know if it's true for others, is the absolutely decentralized, distributed, fragmented nature of where the waste streams occur. So getting any kind of scale, I think, becomes very challenging in ASEAN. And that significantly affects the economics. So in fact, for anything we're doing, we're actually trying to see if we can make it distributed, heterogeneous. One, the weather, the logistics, the geographical spread of the islands makes it very difficult to aggregate any waste streams.
Yeah.
So that's a huge implementation challenge we're facing on the ground. So anything we design by intention is distributed, but that adds to the cost and creates some complexities. Just want to say that.
I mean, speaking to Arjen Renske earlier, I mean, this is something that you face all the time. But and again, I think that's where you've been so successful in the Netherlands of getting so many people involved on the platform to sort of get that collaboration. And Arjen, you were talking about the logistics side of it being so critical. So, but perhaps you both might have a comment on that. Renske first.
Yes, sure. So I think the success for, well, in the Netherlands is that it is really a collaboration between the government and the companies and the Knowledge Institute, trying to talk together and to work forward. And I think that's also the success of, for example, like the Nutrient platform. We're just bringing together these companies, these organizations from different sectors to talk about it, and it's in a neutral way. And government is also a member of it, supporting it to facilitate interaction and to also get into contact with the companies. Like, what are you experiencing? Why is it a problem? For the platform itself, that's actually one of the key values of it. But your thing about whether you do it like in a big scale or a small scale, that's very valid. And also in the Netherlands, there's not one solution. So yes, the wastewater treatment plants some of them are recovering phosphorus. Some of them, they're burning the sludge, looking at sludge, and then see if they can recover it from ash. But also sometimes on the scale of just a small village, they're looking into possibilities, or getting the urine from festivals.
Right.
So there's this concept like Samila Sanitation Hub. They're just trying to collect like the urine and the black water also from a festival, and then treat it at the spot, getting the clean water and getting the fertilizer. Right. So there are solutions on different scales.
Arjen?
Yes, scale and quality. So quantity and quality is really important to close the cycles. You can do that on a small scale, very local, or on a large scale if you go into industries, for example, or large agricultural applications. There was already a good question about that. Also in the Netherlands, we see also one of these products go to the north of France, for example, or to Germany. So we have our hinterland also as part of our circular applications. And that could be also for Singapore. I know that you want to do it all within Singapore. Sometimes that's quite difficult, especially if you want to really close the systems for nutrients, fertilizers. Palm tree plantages in Malaysia could be a very interesting application for the nutrients from Singapore. I know that you don't want to make too much connections with other countries, but sometimes you also have to look very large to make successful circular solutions.
Just bringing it back to Singapore, you mentioned earlier some of the work you've done here with Research and at Jurong Island, and how you and Semcorp might be able to do things together. I mean, what are some of the opportunities that you might be able to talk about here for potential collaboration?
yeah, the Jurong Island project is a Witte van der Bos project. Research is partially involved there. We are looking there especially also on the water system, and there can be a very clear connection. But the most interesting thing, what we see there in Jurong Island as being important emitter of CO2. So CO2 measures there, but especially also on still the waste, the industrial waste opportunities there. There are some very interesting streams on the island that can be treated completely differently, not by an end solutions by a incinerator, for example, but to create synergies there. Not too much on nutrients, I have to say. So it's a little bit out of the league of nutrients, but it's more about certain components that can be used. And also Sembcorp could be an important player for that. And the other one is the energy, the electrification of Jurong Island that is being identified as a huge important thing also for CO2 emission effects there and climate resilience. And I know that Sembcorp is already engaging in that a lot. So, yeah.
Adrian, Adrian just threw that ball to you. Would you like to catch it and comment?
With regards to, I mean, sorry, I dropped off for a little minute. So his question was, Sembcorp is doing resource recovery already, or were you saying that?
Now, what we are looking into Jurong Island as the opportunities there to create circular solutions. It is not so much on nutrients, but a lot on the very specific waste streams that they have there.
Yeah.
And now it is all brought to the mainland to be incinerated or to be get rid of by a final solutions there. But there are also quite some opportunities also for companies like Sembcorp to get into that waste operations there.
Yeah, I think it's always something that we as a company have always wanted to do. The water is already being recycled, similar to a new water process. With regards to the sludge and all that, we do have collaborations on how perhaps we can repurpose our bottom ash as opposed to putting it into a landfill, maybe turning it into activated carbon, which we can use back into our water processes, so that it's a little bit circular. Instead of like burying it and the sludge, perhaps it's some sort of digestion method and to reduce the volumes as well as to produce some more waste gas. So we do look at it on how we might be able to reuse or repurpose what we have.
Okay, Shiva, we're going to go to Q&A in a second, but I just thought Singapore imports most of our food. Now, of course, we've got 30-30. We're going to do a lot more over the next 10 years. Does it then actually make sense to talk about a circular economy when you're importing so much of your food? How do you rationalize that?
I'm guessing the question was for me, so I took the liberty of...
yes, Shiva, yeah.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Thank you, Adam. Well, I think Singapore should not aim for complete circularity in food, right? And I think the government rightly therefore is estimating a best case of 30% from a strategic security perspective. So what Singapore should aim for, in my view, is a slight bending of the linearity to make it a smile rather than try and close the loop. Because the first priority should be super affordable, high quality food for Singaporeans. And not necessarily 100% locally produced, very expensive food. That said, I think even in the 30 by 30 goal, I think we need to get deeper. At this point, what we're talking about or the action that's happening on the ground is really integration, which means the seeds are coming from somewhere, the nutrients are coming from somewhere, if it's plants, and then the systems are coming from somewhere else, and people are here, entrepreneurs are trying to find good applications for it. But true security is when we actually are able to provide all the inputs also in Singapore for the 30 by 30 strategy. I think that would be the next challenge for entrepreneurs and innovators in Singapore. So we are hoping to see if we can make a contribution in that as well.
Okay, listen, we're just on a 4:45. I'm going to go to questions from the floor. Rensko, I don't know if you can see the questions. The first one there, can you see that, is asking you about struvite?
Yes, I saw the question. Well, to answer, yes, it's right that we export some of the struvite to Canada and Germany. Do we work to expand the market for struvite? Yes and no. We try to make it, from a legislative perspective, more easier to be able to reuse it. But it's difficult to change the demand for the project because struvite is a specific fertilizer, and it's the same as like chocolate. Some people like dark chocolate, some people like milk chocolate. So plants, some plants, they like struvite, some plants, they prefer other types of phosphate fertilizers. So in the Netherlands, I think it will still be difficult to find the right niche for this product. So therefore the focus is more on what kind of other phosphate fertilizers can we also produce from the wastewater. So I think the focus will be more on that. And if you have any questions, because it's nice to see that you read my thesis, or a whole part of it was quite big, you can just send me a message also.
You've got
Yes.
a fan. Another question that we've got here, is there a simple way to collect NPK contained in urine? I'm asking in the context of developing countries low-tech can help farmers. An interesting one for smallholder farmers. Is there a simple way to collect NPK? Who'd like to take that?
Potassium is more useful than magnesium, so I understand the question. Also, we see a lot of demand in developing countries here from sludge and used water. The potassium is not really easy. That is sometimes a limiting factor. So magnesium, nitrogen phosphate is much easier to do. I've not seen a really easy solution for that at this moment. So not a low-tech technology doing that. But we also see that also in developing countries, you see higher technology coming up and closing this loop. So don't be afraid sometimes to use higher technology on a centralized spot. If you want to do it really in the outbacks, that is difficult. But if you do it in an urban area in the developing countries, it's also possible.
Not to mention the challenges of aggregating sufficient urine streams to be able to process them. That's very tricky.
Yeah. Though I certainly know the World Toilet Organization here that I work with is very keen to look for technology, because how can you capture urine? It's one of those topics that people sort of blush a little bit when you talk about it sometimes, but there's a lot of volume out of there, but how do you aggregate? So I think that's a fascinating one. We've seen various solutions over the years of people trying to create attachments to collection devices, whether they be toilets or otherwise. Now, there's a more general question which I'll go to on the sense of, are we just fixing at the edges or playing fixes at the edges? Are there more systemic solutions that we as solution providers should be doing? You know, circular economy is a wonderful concept, but there's a concern that will mask the bigger issues. What role as solution providers can play to ensure a wider systemic change? And I think it's a good question. And also one of the things we are often trying to, after the fact, convert something, as opposed to building systems from the ground up that have worked out how we can use all streams in the process. So just from a systemic view, does anyone like to have an answer to that question? It's a philosophical one in some ways, but it's also a systems approach too.
Yes, I think I would like to react on it. Because I think there's some right point in it, is that you really want to look from a bigger perspective on how actually flows are going through your system. So just nutrient recovery in itself, doing it will be useful if it fits in your system. But you have to think about, you have to address these bigger questions. Like in the Netherlands, we import a lot of food because for our animal husbandry, and we export a lot. So you can question whether that is a system that you want or not, and opinions on that differ. One of the solutions to prevent to having a bad quality, that is this nutrient recovery, which then you make a problem into more an opportunity. Because if you would look at Singapore and you say, I want to produce my food locally, you also have to look at these flows. So where does the nutrients or where does your food come from? How does it go through the system? Where are you losing it? And is it something that you want? But there's always a balance between a focus on using less energy or carbon or being more local. And sustainability is really difficult definition. And I think sustainability will be sometimes on small scale and sometimes is a solution on a larger scale. Yeah, I think that's a kind of like my perception. But there's not one clear answer to that question. It's something that we should also always discuss, like what is the system that we want?
Anyone else have an opinion that they'd like to share? Shiva?
Yeah, well, so in a perfectly utopian ideal world, we want to have 7.5, 8, 9 billion people, whatever that population is, eating perfectly organically grown, zero input farm or permaculture grown food. So let's say we can achieve that in 100 years. Now, in the interim, we cannot stop feeding people, right? Let's say we figure out how to do regenerative agriculture or multi-cropping systems that can actually restore diversity on Earth, in soils, make the soils richer, and still manage to feed the people. That itself is, let's say, a utopian dream. Assuming we can get that 50, 80, 100 years later, what do we do in the interim? We have to work with the system we have, right? And I think nutrient recovery and circular economy is an absolutely critical part of that bridge solution to ensure that we make marginal progress towards that ultimate goal, I think.
Okay. Adrian, there's a straightforward question. I think I'll pass to you. Where does phosphate recovery differ from desalination?
I think they're completely different processes. So I think desalination is basically you take seawater and depending on how you look at it, you either remove the salt or you remove the water and you have a clean stream of water at the end. I think for phosphate recovery, we are saying that in general, it's usually a waste stream of wastewater that's coming in, and you find a way to mine nutrients back out of that stream. So whether you can take out phosphates or nitrogen or whatever, and then you take these nutrients and reuse it in another process. So that's kind of the difference, and they are actually different concepts. Yeah.
Okay, as we sort of head towards the end of the session, but perhaps a question to you all. As we start to sort of develop some of these new systems, if you were trying to give recommendations of how we could overcome some of the biggest obstacles you see in sort of nutrient recycling, what are the things that we have to take on? Is it, around sort of mindset of people? Is it the way that we take a systems approach to building solutions to deal with recycling? Is it finance? Is it the lack of business cases? I'd just be interested to know where each of you sort of feel what's your biggest obstacle. You're all in the business one way or another. What do you think's the biggest obstacle as we go forward? And
I think for me, I don't speak for Sembcorp, but I think it kind of has to make commercial sense. And for someone like me or someone in Sembcorp, we have that because we are the utilities business, I don't really have a view of how does the nutrient recovery business work? How does agriculture work? If I make this for $1, can I sell it for $2? So I think someone who can sort of put that together in a way that makes sense to us I think that's one part of it, because that's something I don't have visibility on. I think the second part is also the technology, and I could be wrong again, but the technology seems a little bit more high tech and not deployed in a very large manner so far. And if we could see a few more case studies that are a bit more prominent, maybe, you know, the Water Association gives out like the best water plant in the world, and every year they give out one and everybody wants to win. If you could give away like the best nutrient recovery award kind of thing, and then it drives the overall visibility, and then we can take note and we understand how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. An award, okay. Who'd like to go, Shiva?
Yeah, I would say that we need tremendous amount of entrepreneurial ingenuity and creativity to carve out business models that work. One little example, at Urban Tiller, we are taking urban produce and pushing it directly to households because we feel that any other alternative business model, the conventional ones where we're going to the wholesaler model, will not work. So I'm using this example to say we need new business models, new ways of adding value to early adopter consumer segments. And that's when deployment of technology, recovery of nutrients will make sense. Thank you.
Renska?
There are many answers to these questions. I think, well, I would say maybe a bigger understanding of the role of nutrients in the system. It's not really tangible, so it's also sometimes difficult to communicate about. It's not a piece of plastic that you can really recycle. So you have to understand how even these flows are part of a system that you're creating. And I think maybe more awareness to that would already help, because after that you come into the more practical problems, like we have a product but there's no demand, or the business case is not there. And I think just more awareness on what is sustainable sourcing of your nutrients. So, and that's part of sustainable sourcing for your food, then that could already help, and maybe also make it then easier to change legislation or to set up a system. So maybe just go back to this awareness of understanding of nutrients in the whole flow.
Right. So kind of a communication message and somewhat of an education message as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because then you can get those entrepreneurs who think, yes, and we want to change this, and you get people going.
If I can see the opportunity, I can then try to take advantage of it. Then to close out.
And maybe in that line also that understanding you can do by mapping, for example, these streams to show the supply and demand of these nutrients, where it is going, who is producing that, who is the owner at certain times. And I think you should, I was listening a lot to the financial cost benefit. Maybe you should look also to the social cost benefit. So make it a little bit larger in the business case, that not only the financial topics are there, but also the social economics are there. And by that also, for example, the impact on CO2, on sustainability, and at the same time, and at the long time, the environmental impact by that. So don't underestimate the importance of that, not only looking at the financial costs there.
Yeah. Well, we're just on the hour. So thank you all very much for having this conversation with me. I've certainly learned a lot, and it's been very interesting, and I hope you've all learned a lot. I guess, you know, what have we heard? In many ways, it's most probably like any of the other activities that we take on and sort of trying to solve problems. You know, we've had conversations around scale, collaboration. I mean, I think we know that collaboration is at the heart of solving these problems. No one organization can do it alone. We just have to keep collaborating. And thank you for our sort of the cousins from the Netherlands to sort of sharing their experiences in that regard. We still have to be entrepreneurial. I think your last comment there, Ayan, about the mapping, you know, show me the money in a sense to, you know, where are the opportunities, what are the right impacts, and let's help communicate that in a different kind of way so that we understand both the opportunity, the potential damage, even if we don't do something, but ultimately we do need to take a systems approach, I think, to so many of these things to really understand holistically. And if we collaborate, communicate, and take that approach, I think we'll do very well. So thank you all for joining this afternoon. Thank you all to the panelists, Arjen, Renska, Adrian, and Shiva. Thank you very much. Over to you, Jody.
Thank you, Adam. So similarly, I'd like to give special mention to all of our panelists, Adam, Adrian, Renska, Arjen, and Shiva for joining us for this informative panel discussion on nutrient recycling and the circular economy. We'd also like to thank our event partner, the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Singapore, and the Netherlands Innovation Network for making this webinar possible. For the attendees who tuned in today, thank you so much. And even though we were unable to answer all of the questions submitted due to the time constraints, we hope that we've still managed to cover a considerable number of questions and also share more about the nutrient recycling process and moving towards a circular agricultural system. Please also keep a lookout for our post-event EDM mailer, which will actually include a recording of this event that will be posted on our YouTube page. And also feel free to write to us at events@SGInnovate if you have any questions. And we hope that you can also fill up our feedback form that will be in the link after you close this webinar and join us at the rest of our events. So that's it from us, and we hope that everybody has a lovely evening or morning, depending on where you're tuning in from. And we hope to see you soon. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.